So let's bring our first leader to the stage, and that is Giselle Frederick of Zingr, which is a blockchain technology solution for the unbanked. And she gets extra brownie points from me because she started her career as a coder. So she's a proper girl geek. So please put your hands together for Giselle Frederick.
So my name is Giselle Frederick. I am the founder and CEO of Zingr. We're a digital payment platform and money management platform for people that are unbanked and underbanked in developing countries. So after many years in finance, I decided, after many years in finance, I started to hear a bit more about Bitcoin. And I'm from the Caribbean originally. I send money home to my family to help. I have 2 younger siblings, a brother and a sister, and they were in full-time education. I wanted to help them have all the things to make them comfortable so they would study harder. They didn't study harder. Instead, they just spent all the money. And my little brother had the most incredible body art collection. And I hope I didn't contribute to any of it. But the cost of sending remittance at home was very expensive for me. And even as a student and as a young adult, like sending two transactions per month I didn't want to pay that amount of money. It was about £10 to send £100 at home. And I thought, in this day and age, why should I pay that amount of money to translate one currency into another? And I started hearing a bit more about Bitcoin and the use cases in reducing the cost of translating one currency into another, so the FX rate. And I thought I could do this. Why can't we just implement a digital wallet in the Caribbean? And I looked into it and I thought, this is good. But then there's nobody that would take any of the money. So I guess a bit fast forward. So over the years, I designed a solution that solved the problems of reducing the cost of remittances, but also I acknowledged that the true problem why people were unbanked and underbanked wasn't just the cost of remittances, but it was the over-reliance on cash and the grey economy and the lack of identity and all of that. And those are all some of the features that I baked into Zingr. And elements of financial literacy, which is why you see the graphs, and later on there'll be elements to help them save and spend their money. So the last time I gave this presentation was around June, and we had quite a lot of developments in the market. There are quite a lot of projects going on that were raising a lot of money through ICOs. Some people were swearing by blockchain to save the world and solve all the world's problems. And while others were implementing digital ID solutions to help people that didn't have access to identity document or government-issued identity documents to get access to one. This is so awkward. So in many parts of the developing parts of the world, in emerging markets, there are quite a lot of issues that they're facing that blockchain can help alleviate some of the symptoms. Some of it is poverty, it's around identity, it's around ownership of land. Of course, reducing the cost of remittances is another good one. And we do have a lot of markets that we can implement solutions where blockchain can have a massive impact. I think personally, and this is not written on any study there, but I think blockchain could have much more of a bigger impact on emerging markets more than developed economies, simply because it allows us to leapfrog over the existing infrastructure and create solutions that solves the problems much more efficiently. That way? Okay. Okay. Oh, okay. Well, and I have the light in my eyes. So what are the challenges that some of these countries are facing? So we have problems, political problems, so corrupt governments, of course we know this. This is a problem in the developed world as well, but it's especially a problem within the developing countries. Most developing countries score highly here. Issues around regulations and law. So a lot of the regulations are regulating yesteryear, and a lot of the laws are also not updated for the technologies that we have and the advances that we've had so far in the last few decades. Education, of course. People like me contribute to the brain drain, which is a bit sad, but the people that are left to run these countries are often not necessarily the ones that went and gotten the highest degree of education, so that tends to be a problem. But some of the biggest challenges of emerging markets is around culture and the reluctance to adopt innovation and technology as a solution. So I think, I mean, we all know that, I guess from the developed world, living in London, we have access to all these credit profiles. You know, we could open a bank account almost immediately. We have access to efficient processes that would give us access to a passport on demand, or, you know, register births and deaths and, you know, deed titles and all of that, pass that down. But in many of the developing world, these processes are lacking, and technology can definitely help in reducing some of the problems. Enter blockchain. So there are lots of characteristics of blockchain, and I don't know how many of you are familiar with blockchain or heard of it. It's good, because I didn't have time to do a full blockchain 101. So blockchain is global. People can use it from all different parts of the world. It's decentralized, so there's no one person. Well, there are distributed ledger technology, but for most of the bigger networks, specifically the Bitcoin networks, is fully decentralized. So no one person controls how it is used or how tokens are issued. It is accessible. The barrier to entry is quite low. You download a wallet, you pay some money, and then you get some tokens, and then you're able to make transactions and use it. It is also very secure. I mean, it creates an immutable ledger that cannot be tampered with. Not one person can tamper it. You have to control a large percentage of the nodes for you to tamper with the records. And it is anonymous. It's pseudo-anonymous rather than anonymous, but yeah, that is a great characteristic. So what are some of the use cases for emerging markets? So I mentioned before finance, just reducing the cost of remittances, and digital identity is also another great use case to help people that don't have access to government-issued identity documents, but also people like refugees coming in. We could issue them a temporary ID on the blockchain, and that ID can be used on a network to, it's just one example, but there are other examples for identity as well. E-governance, we can reduce a lot of processes, or we can make a lot more processes more efficient using blockchain as well. Healthcare, storing of records, enabling only certain type of people that are permissioned to get access to it. So let's say you're an insurance company, maybe yourself as a, no? Okay, I just want to see if I'm being about to be pulled off. You can expose certain bits of information. So healthcare records is one other one. Energy, of course. I don't know if you've heard of communities that generate, so some parts of Africa, they're using, or even Puerto Rico recently, they're using, after the hurricane, they were able to get a company to go over to help them establish an energy grid, and then they can sell energy back to the grid. So let's say you have your solar panels, you could sell that energy back to the national grid and get some tokens in return. And of course, logistics, it's a massive enabler there. So is blockchain the great equalizer? I believe so. I believe that in its current state, there are a lot of use cases. However, there are a lot more use cases that out there that's unrealized. And I think it has the potential to make a lot of people's lives a lot better, especially in emerging markets, but also in developed parts of the world. But there are some criticisms. There are criticisms around the transaction costs, so the amount it would take to validate a transaction on the network, issues around performance. There's also, it's very complicated, the notion. Not every person off the street understands the concept of it. There's also very few use cases we've seen up to date where it is fully adopted. We've seen it in, I guess, where we're speculating on the trading of tokens, but there aren't many full-on use cases that we've seen come to light. But they are being developed. I think in the next few years we'll see a lot more emerging. And immutability is not always a good thing, which is one of the criticism. If you put something that is, I guess, incorrect on the blockchain, and it's, you know, the immutability part, it would stay there forever. And you know, that isn't always a good thing. For example, if you know, say someone is a criminal, for example, which is a terrible example, but, you know, then you put it on there. Does that mean it's 5 minutes? Yeah, immutability isn't always a good thing because then you can't get it off again. So, but we have seen the emergence of some new business models around new technology models, new market models, and new operating models. So in terms of business models, we have a lot more digital companies being created. We have a lot more consortium-based solutions. And we have a lot more services rather than buying things outright. There's a lot more, I guess, sharing. New technology models, blockchain and other technologies being used for enablement. Lots more focus on data and machine learning, and obviously IoT is another big technology model that's there. Operating model, obviously with the rise in data being captured, we have a lot more data-driven models. And more global collaboration. And marketplaces are also on the rise, and that can be attributed as well. Oh, maybe skip that one. So I do believe that this technology is here and is here to stay. And I think it can have great impact in the developing world. And I think there are many ways that we can contribute, and I urge you to look into it and, you know, maybe learn a little bit more. This does not give you an overview of what it is, but there are lots of forums out there where you could learn a lot more about it and how it can contribute.